Do you like your chili with beans or without? Today we're going to do it both ways. I like it with no beans. David sometimes likes the beans. So we're going to do a mixed batch, and I'm going to show you how to change things up to suit your family. Welcome to Grow and Preserve. I'm Carter. I'm so glad you're here today. We're going to put some more meals on the shelf today, and we're going with chili. Now, as I said, I generally prefer, well, I always prefer no beans in my chili. David, sometimes he wants beans in his chili, feels like it bulks it up a little bit more, and that's fine. So we're going to do some with beans, some without beans in the same batch. So as you can see, there are a lot of ingredients in this one. Don't get intimidated. A lot of the ingredients are the same. I just happen to have, smaller cans of things. This is based on a recipe by Brian Lagerstrom, who is a chef on YouTube. He does wonderful, wonderful meals, I think, and I've done versions of his meals several times and canned them. So this one I have done before to eat fresh, and I really enjoy the depth of flavor in it, all the different spices you can taste. His version is too hot for me. So I'm gonna make a much milder version. I am gonna link his video in there, and you can feel free to amp up the heat as much as you want. I've had conversations with folks in the comments lately about, what intensifies, what doesn't. And, I hear different things from different people. So, based on anecdote and trial and error, I think what intensifies will be anything to which you're sensitive. Like, I'm sensitive to heat. So it can be relatively mild going in the jar and come out fire for me on the other end. Some people are sensitive to salt. It can be, just barely salted enough going in, and then they find it way too salty on the other end. I know one person said it was thyme for her. She's like, oh my gosh, I thought I liked thyme. And then when I canned it, I didn't like thyme because there was too much thyme flavor. So my suggestion would be that if you are sensitive to heat or any of these spices or salt level or pepper level or any of that, just go light when you can it. Just go light. You could always add a little bit of hot sauce at the end. You could add a little bit of salt at the end. You could add some black pepper. You can add whatever it is to which you think there is an edge with the spice, right? So, for me, it can be perfect on heat level, and then boom, suddenly I'm like breathing fire, right? So that's what you want to try to avoid. So we're going to make this say that everybody can eat it. So you will see me cut back on his original recipe in the heat level, not in the spices, in the heat level. And I will also tell you that my chili powder that I'm going to be using today is fire, even fresh. So I'm going to be using significantly less of the regular chili powder than he uses, and I'm going to add some ancho chili powder to kind of cut that. So we're going to get started. I am going to start off I have 5 pounds of, this is 90-10, I think. Let me see. It doesn't say. I think it is 90-10 ground beef. So I have 5 pounds of that. I'm going to start browning that in the big pot back here on the stove. Now, Brian does it a really interesting way, and I did it when I made this fresh. He does his ground beef in the oven under the broiler. And I did it, and it worked out great last time because as I was cooking fresh, I could just keep going, and I didn't have to go back and tend to the pot and squish it up and all that kind of stuff. However, it splattered in my oven. And I now have new ovens. It's like getting a new car. You don't want that first ding. So, at what point do I say, okay, a little splatter is okay? But this, last time I did it in my old ovens, it was a lot of splatter. So cleanup is far more the way he does it, but prep is far easier the way he does it. So you decide whatever suits you. I'm going to do it on the stove today, and then we'll take it out and drain it a bit while I do the onions and the seasonings, and then we'll put it all back together. So one other thing I wanted to show you. Yesterday, these are our red kidney beans, which are the kidney beans I put in my chili. If you prefer black beans or white beans or pinto beans or whatever it is you put in your chili, feel free to use those. Let them soak overnight. So we don't want to use already canned beans, the way Brian does when he's cooking it fresh. We want raw but soaked, fully soaked. We want them to expand. So that was half a cup of beans yesterday when I put it in there. It's soaked overnight, almost 24 hours, maybe 22 hours right now. So I'm going to use those beans, and they're going to do their cooking process in the jar but I want them soaked going in so that I know basically how much room they're going to take up, and so they don't soak all the liquid out of the chili itself. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to get this in the pot, and you don't need to watch me cook ground beef again because we've done that a few times. I have a giant onion. This is a huge onion. The recipe calls for it, the levels we're doing it, 2 large onions. I think that is huge. So I did a test today. I stuck this in the refrigerator for an hour beforehand because so many of you have told me that that will stop the tears. I also have a sink now next to where I'm cooking, so I'm going to turn on maybe a little bit of water because that was another suggestion. And we're going to see if I can get through chopping this onion without tears. And I think this is going to come together very quickly. I'm shooting for 8 regular mouth pints. I'm going to use the Presto electric canner today, and it'll hold 8 regular mouth pints. Only 7 of the wide mouth pints, but 8 regular mouth pints. So that's my goal. It may vary a bit depending how many jars I decide to do with beans. So we may be slightly under that, slightly over that. David would quite frankly prefer I'm slightly over that so that he can have leftover chili for dinner tonight. So we'll see how that shakes out, and I'll keep you posted the whole time. And I will also say at the end of this video, once I have made the chili and it has sat for, I can probably get through a week before I need to shoot the end of this video. So we'll let it sit for at least several days, and then I'll come back and taste it for you. And I'll, because I'm cutting back on some of the heat, I'll be able to judge if I cut back enough and give you some feedback on that. So let's get going. I have a little bit of avocado oil in the pan just to help the ground beef not stick to the stainless steel until I can start releasing some of its own fat. So as I mentioned, this is 90-10. So I might drain, I might not drain. I'm kind of thinking I might not drain, but we'll see. Normally I would use 93-7 and not drain at all, but this is all they had at the store. So I have done with you before a recipe called Texas chili that was done with stew beef and no beans, and I love it. That's actually my favorite chili. David prefers a ground beef chili, so this is what I'm making for him. I like a ground beef chili too, quite frankly, but I really like the flavor of that Texas chili that we made together. But this one, when I made it just for fresh eating, everybody who had it really enjoyed the flavors. All right, let's get this in. All right, let's see how this onion trick works. All right, I'm going to start the sink up, and we're going to run just a little bit of water. See if that helps with the onion too. I know it's not a real experiment if you don't do one variable at a time, but I'm going to try everything I can not to cry through this very large onion. So we want a relatively fine dice on this. It's cold. I don't know, I can feel it hitting my eyes right now. Yeah, I'm not sure we have a winner. Feel the onion. So I'm not sure that that is a winner of a trick. Let me break this up a bit. If you don't have a meat masher like this one, you should really get one. They're super cheap on Amazon, works great. I'll link the one I have down below, but it's always in my Amazon shop. All right, let's see if I can get this other half chopped here. All right, that's about all of the onion I can take. I'm going to go ahead and get these beans drained. I'll rinse them off a couple of times. I have changed the water once so far. All right, this will be a true hot pack today. So I want hot water in my canner. I want hot jars because I'm going to be adding hot liquidy filling. So my jars are in the dishwasher. I just put them in there on like the quick cycle or whatever it was. So they are almost ready to go. That'll beep in just a couple of minutes. That'll beep in 4 minutes. So then those will be ready. I'm going to get my lids ready, finish getting this browned, and then I'm going to go ahead and drain this into a bowl. Someone commented last time about saving the meat juice as well. I'm probably going to use the meat juices as liquid adding back in. I do have some bone broth if I want to use that, but I think I'll go with the meat juices first. As I've told you before, if I have grass-fed ground beef, the fat really doesn't bother me at all, doesn't bother me in the jar. I just don't want so much that when I go to prepare the chili for dinner, there's a layer of fat on top that just, you know, in the bowl, right? After it's heated up and you see that's kind of grease slick there. I don't want that, but I do appreciate the value of the grass-fed beef fat. So we'll save some of that and kind of make a judgment call when we see how it looks after it comes out. I'll drain the beef into a large bowl so I can capture all of that. All right, I'm gonna get myself ready. Be right back with you. Okay, I have the meat draining over here. I have to say there was a lot of fat in that, so I will be very selective about how much of the liquid I add back. I'm going to get these onions in. There were a few tears with the onions. I don't know that I did myself any good by taking those steps, but it didn't hurt. Just didn't really help. So I'm going back in the same pot. Try to get as few dishes as I possibly can. I didn't bother to rinse it out, of course, because the ground beef is going right back in here. I want my onions to get to translucent, and then we'll add our seasonings. I did not salt the beef yet. I will salt the beef when I put it back in here, and then we'll check for saltiness as well as the rest of the seasoning before we can it. And again, if you're sensitive to anything, undershoot that by just a little bit. All right, oops. This will go faster if I turn the burner back on. So I put a little more olive oil in there. This, of course, whatever remains of the drippings from the ground beef. I'll sweat those out just a little bit. And then I'm going to add my spices so I can toast those up. I wanted to talk, hold on, I'll bring you up here. So I want to talk to you for just a minute. You'll notice that I'm using a bunch of commercially canned diced tomatoes. A couple of reasons for that. One, I feel like diced tomatoes take a lot of work when you're canning them at home. So I like to save those for a dish where tomatoes are the star. In this one, I want the beef and the seasonings to be the star, not necessarily the tomatoes, although they are a vital component in my opinion. But so I'm going to use commercially canned tomatoes for that. I also like to get them out of their can before they've been in there too long, because even though it says it's a BPA-free lining, you know, with the acidity of tomatoes, something leaches into the food. I don't know what it is, have no facts for that, but that's how I feel about it. So I try not to let these go through my pantry, or not to let them sit in my pantry too often. I do buy them specifically for canning, other projects kind of thing. But if I were going to make something where tomato is a star, like say I'm making a pasta sauce or something, I would use a jar of my home canned pasta sauce, and I would use a jar of my home canned tomatoes, and that would be the tomato wow that I want. But this, it's the beef and seasoning wow that I really want. I would also say that as I put these in, I'll be using 1 can less than what the doubled recipe would call for. Because when I opened it, you know, they have these little flip-top things. When I opened it, it was not a sound I've ever heard coming out of a pop-top can before. So I don't want to eat that jar. If I decide I need more tomatoes, I'll run downstairs and get another can. But that one is not something I'm interested in putting in my chili. All right, let's see how we're doing here. All right, I'll bring it over here for a second and show you how much liquid is coming out of this ground beef. All right, here we go. Now, that's quite a lot. And you can see the fat layer starting to form. So it's a decent amount of fat. So I don't want to put all of that back in my chili. I will put some, as we talked about before, but not all of that. All right, let's get back here. I'll start getting some of these seasonings in there to toast up. Okay, so Brian's recipe, the doubled version, which is what I'm doing, would call for 1 cup of chili powder. But as I mentioned, mine is so spicy. I'm going to start with a 1/4 cup and work my way up from there. And I know that makes me sound like a total wuss, but you know what? I just don't want to open a jar one day looking forward to a jar of chili and not be able to tolerate it without fire on my tongue. So we'll start there. And then I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of ancho chili to break this one up a bit. So ancho chilies are about 1,000 to 2,000 Scoville units. So I find it helps break up that red chili powder. We'll get some cumin in there. Now, I love cumin. I'm going to add the full amount of cumin. Should be about 3 tablespoons. He also has fresh garlic in the recipe. I don't have any fresh garlic on hand, so I'm just going to use some garlic powder. We'll start with 1.5 tablespoons, and then add a little bit more if needed. All right, paprika. He would call for 1/2 cup of paprika. And don't worry about writing these down. I'm going to put them in the description below. I'm going to go ahead and use 1/4 cup of regular paprika and then a little smoked paprika just for that smoky flavor. As you'll see, I'm going to cut back on the adobo chilies here, where I would normally get the smoky flavor from. Let that toast up without burning. Get some salt in there. I'll start with a couple teaspoons of salt. So I'll salt this, and then I'll probably add more salt to the ground beef when I put that in. The recipe itself calls for 4 teaspoons of salt. It also calls for some chipotles and adobo. I'm going to hold off on this. I really am, just to see where my spice level is. All right, before we get any burning going on here, I'm going to get some tomatoes in. I've drained the tomatoes except for the fire roasted tomatoes. And I didn't drain the fire roasted tomatoes because I only had 2 cans, and it calls for 4. So we'll get the flavor in there, in the juice, and the tomatoes from these regular plain tomatoes. Nice tomatoes. Pick up all those good spices on the bottom. Okay, here are the fire roasted tomatoes. Wish I'd had more jars of those, but I did not. I'm going to need a bigger pot. Back to when they include the stem end in the tomato. I just don't like to eat the stem end. I don't know. He calls for 3 tablespoons of bouillon paste. I use this better than bouillon. Another reason not to put all the salt in at the beginning, because this has a good bit of salt in it. It's probably 3 tablespoons. Get off of there. So if you made my beef bone broth, if I happen to need any bone broth, I'm going to use a 3rd round because I don't need so much the deep, rich thing. Again, it's a background thing going on in my finished dish, and I also have this bouillon, which can be very intense. Get that melted in there. Yeah, it looks good just like this. I could just eat a tomato chili. I think David's going to be excited. We're going to have plenty of leftovers with this. Last time I did it, I just did a single batch, but I didn't do it for canning. So I didn't even look at it in terms of how many jars would I fill here. I think we're going to be just fine. Definitely don't need that last jar of diced tomatoes that nearly exploded on me. There were no dents on the can anywhere. I mean, it looked fine. I didn't open it. Let's take a look. Okay, no dents anywhere, but that's the one that it was a powerful explosion when I opened that. Let's see if there, I don't see anything suspicious in there, but again, I'm not going to eat it. All right, let's get some Worcestershire sauce in here. Actually, let's get the tomato sauce in here. A couple cans of tomato sauce. did not remember how much this made. We may end up getting both canners out. All right, 4 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. And this was new to me. This is a Brian thing. 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. Which sounds delicious. It was delicious when I had it before, but I would never have thought of that on my own. We're going to add a little brown sugar. So I'm using allulose and molasses, but if you have brown sugar, feel free to use that, or regular sugar and a little molasses, feel free to use that. If you prefer honey, feel free to use that. That's going to be enough allulose. And a little bit of molasses to turn that into brown sugar. You know, as I'm looking at this in the pot here, I'm recalling that when I made this before, I remember thinking, what a great way to extend ground beef with tomatoes instead of with beans, since I'm, you know, not a bean-loving girl. I had forgotten that this was heavy on the tomatoes. All right, I'm gonna get a clean spoon here, take a little taste. We still have tomato paste to add. I'm going to taste for seasoning. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's fantastic. As it stands right here, it has just a little bit of a heat on the back end, but like, I don't know, a teenager, I don't know, maybe a child would be okay with this. That's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I'm not going to add the chipotle cenadebo. I am not going to add the red pepper flakes. What else am I not going to add? Oh, he has hot sauce in his recipe. I'm not going to add that either. This for me is just perfect, and if the heat intensifies a little bit while canning, it'll be excellent. Absolutely excellent. David can always add red pepper flakes or hot sauce to his, but for me, this is great. I'm going to get a new, larger pot out, get the beef in, get some tomato paste in. Wow, that's really good. Really good. I think that the ancho chili powder helped a lot. Last time I just used all my chili powder and, you know, it was on fire. That ancho had such a good flavor in addition to being much milder than the chili powder I have. That's terrific. Okay, I've got the bigger pot out. Let's get the beef in there. Can you see? No, you can't. See that layer of fat? It's a lot of fat. And I think if you have some suggestions on what I can do with that, I'll find something to do with it this time. But for next time, because, you know, a couple if you don't like it when I let it go. Okay, this is fantastic. All right, I'm going to add some salt to my beef because I have not salted that yet. And once I add it to the chili, it will throw off the saltiness in there. So I think I'll add 2 teaspoons to here. All right, I feel like I need a stepladder for this process to get it up and over. Let's trade places. Hopefully you are high enough to be able to see in. Let me get the, what I would really at this point call chili base, into the ground beef. Carefully. I'll be shocked if I didn't splatter that all over myself too. We'll see. So remember, at this point, everything in here is cooked. The ground beef is cooked, the onions are cooked, the spices have been warmed, the tomatoes have been warmed. Regardless, we can taste it at this point because I'm not adding raw beans directly to this. So let's take another taste now that we've added the ground beef. Find a new spoon. Get a tomato on there. I think that's amazing. I really, really like that. I'm going to add some of the tomato paste. I thought I had a knife out to get the tomato paste. Let me grab one. Double recipe would call for 6 tablespoons of tomato paste. Okay. Not quite a whole can. All right, I can tell you, so far I am really pleased with this recipe. Really pleased with this recipe. So we'll try it in a few days after it's sat for a while and see what I think, and I will put that at the end of this video. Again, forgot to turn the burner back on. So we'll let that come back up to temperature. I'll let that tomato paste melt in a bit. Oh, beautiful. All right, I'm going to clean up just a bit while that comes back up, and then we'll get the jars ready and start canning it up. Okay, we are good to go. One note for you. I told you I was going to add some smoked paprika in addition to just regular sweet paprika. I can't remember if I did or not, but I've tasted it again a couple times now actually, and I'm not going to add anything. So I'll have to go back and watch as I edit this to see if I added it or not. But whatever I write down in the description is exactly what I did. All right, let's get in. I have hot clean jars. Let's get going there. I want to do my 2 with beans first. I was going to do 3 or 4 with beans, but I have to tell you, this is like my new favorite chili. So I'm going to make more jars that I want to eat without beans. So these are the beans that have soaked overnight. They've been rinsed several times. And as I told you, I put in 1/2 cup of dry beans, 1/2 cup of soaked beans. That's a little shy. In each of these 2 jars. Okay, so I put 1/2 cup of the soaked beans in each jar. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off now. Give it a stir. I did not add any extra liquid to this, either from the meat juices or beef broth. And I'm really pleased. Let me bring you over for 1 second, let you see the final product here. See, that is my chili. Oh, it's so good. I wish you could smell it. I wish you could taste it. All right, let's get some jars loaded, shall we? Now, when I go to debubble these, those beans will mix in at least to the bottom. Then, of course, when you pour it out into a bowl or a pot to get it ready to serve, it will mix up even more. I'm going to go a generous 1-inch headspace on these, just because thick tomato products can bubble up on you. And I don't want any siphoning if I can help it. So we'll come back and debubble and then check the headspace on all of these. I have my canner heating up. I added hot water to it, so it won't be but a minute. Now, before I put these in the canner, I hope I'm going to remember to put maybe write a B on top of those lids so I know that they have beans in them. But I have been known to forget to do that, so I just have to rely on what I can see through the jar. I've already told David there's going to be plenty left for dinner tonight. He's very excited by that, as am I. Whoops. Oops, goodness. Didn't have enough tomatoes in that one. Okay, let's get some debubbling done and see where we are. I've got a couple that are a little more full than I would like, and a couple that are underfilled, so we'll fix that. I'm going to break all these beans up. I don't want them sticking at the bottom of the jar. I'm going to get something a little sturdier than my plastic knife so I don't break that in there. People will tell you not to use metal in a jar. I'll tell you not to use metal in a jar. You don't want to risk cracking it. But I didn't want to break off my knife in there either, so here we are. Okay, so those beans are off the bottom, nicely incorporated. You can see some at the top. Oh, hot jar. Some at the top now. I'll do the same thing to this one. And then I'm going to equalize the levels on these a bit. Beans over there. That's my canner saying it is hot enough and ready to go. Okay, let's transfer a few of these over here. Okay, I think all those are good. Again, I want a very generous inch on these. Try to avoid any kind of siphoning issue. All right, I'm going to put some more of the liquidy part of the chili in these, just in case those beans want a little more liquid than I have given them. Okay. So I can see the beans in that one. You know, when they float around during the canning process, don't know if I'll still be able to see them at the end, but I think that's pretty good. It's about 1 1/4 inch headspace. I think I'm just going to leave it as it is. This one as well. You can see the beans are all mixed in so they're not stuck at the bottom. I do have a couple down there. I'm going to grab those. All right, that's better. Now, I have a lot of cleanup to do on these jars before I can put the lids on. So let me clean up my mess here, then we'll take care of that. Okay, beans. Beans. Remind me to write on those. No beans. All right, so I just have some white vinegar. I'm going to use that to clean the rims here really well. You can see, don't ever forget to do this step, because it'll catch you and you'll go, darn it, why didn't it seal? Well, often this is the reason. Just anything that could be up there. Maybe it's just a little piece of cumin or a little piece of salt, some fat, a little piece of tomato. Always remember to wipe your rims. Can't remember if I did that one. Guess not. Okay. I have a lot of chili left in here. I'm kind of thinking, well, I can't decide if I want to pull out the other canner or just eat it over the next few days. Perhaps maybe I will just eat it over the next few days. That way I'll have a good solid base upon which to judge the canned version versus this version. All right. Now let's get the lids on. Lids are washed up and ready to go. Shoot, beans or no beans? I don't see, okay, I see beans. Beans in this one, beans in this one. I tell you, I'm gonna mess that up. just going to put a B up here so we will know. And I'll try, when I'm going to try one, we'll try one with the beans so that I can tell you exactly the texture of the beans as they come out of the canner. I have very good luck with soaking them. If I don't want them to soak up all the liquid, I just soak them overnight and then they work out just fine in whatever it is. Okay, 2 beans ready to go. These are pints, obviously, so they're going to go in the pressure canner for 75 minutes. My canner water is already hot, my jars are hot, and the food inside the jars is hot. I think I probably have 4 pints left in there, so that'll be maybe 2 or 3 meals, probably 2 meals for both David and me, although he can put away some chili, so we'll see. So if you were going to use your, say your All-American or a Presto stovetop, I know the All-American holds 10 regular mouth jars, pint jars. I don't know about the Presto stovetop, but I assume it does as well. You would have plenty if you just did the same size batch I did, and you could also have chili that night. So it seems like a win-win to me. Okay, my jars are in. Bring it over here. Okay, my jars are in. I'm going to put the lid on. This is fill jars. Put that on. Close it up. And then it'll tell me when it wants its regulator on. It's going to come up to temperature. It's going to vent for 10 minutes, then beep at me, tell me to put the regulator on, and then it'll take it from there. It'll just tell me when they're ready. All right, I'll bring you back when these come out of the canner. All right, we're going to do a live taste test for you on the chili. I'm going to do the chili with beans. So after I loaded all the jars and put them in the canner, I had about 4 pints left of chili. And David and I have been eating chili all week, but we haven't tried the one with the beans yet. So we're going to do that today. This is one of the ones that obviously was canned, and we're going to see how that texture is of the beans and the ratio of beans to meat. So stay tuned, I'm going to serve it up. Let's put this on you. Yeah, you're not buttoned at all. Here, I'll put it. Okay, are you in the camera? Can you see that far?
I am now.
You are? Okay.
I am.
All right. How much chili have you had this week?
Oh my gosh, a lot.
A lot of chili.
And I normally don't eat meals more than once or twice. I need a change, but it's been so good. I mean, I don't know what you've done, but this chili's been really good.
This was a really good one.
It was really good.
I know, you know, this was Brian Lagerstrom's recipe. That's probably what
Oh, really?
Yes, that's probably it.
Yeah, well, I put a few pounds on.
Yeah, well, you know, last time, and then I'm going to put all the jars down in the pantry.
That's good.
Okay, so this is the first time we've had the chili with beans. If you remember, I did 2 pints of chili with beans. So we are going to try that. We're going to taste test it, and then I'm going to give you a close-in view so you can see the ratio of the beans to the meat, because I think it turned out really, really well. All right, you first.
All right.
Make sure you taste some beans. Check the consistency. Hot. It's hot, hot, hot.
Mm-hmm. Very hot. Very good. I like that with the beans.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good.
I know, you're a chili with beans kind of guy.
I am. Very good.
All right, I'm going to take a taste of the beans just to...
I like that.
Good. Well, you can keep eating.
I will.
Don't eat too much because I have to show them what it looks like.
Well, then you show them and then I'll eat.
Yeah, this will be yours in a minute.
All right.
Oh, yeah. The bean consistency is great.
Yeah, it is great. I like it. It adds a lot.
They're not overdone. They're not hard.
Yeah, it adds to it.
It does.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like it.
Okay. All right. Let me get them a close-up, and then I'll give you your dinner.
All right, thank you.
All right, I'm going to bring you in. Okay, let's take a look at this chili. You can see that the ratio of the beans to the meat, I think is terrific. You feel like maybe it's a third beans. I don't know. I think it's a really good ratio. Spoonful looks good to me. Lots of good tomato chunks in there. All right, there you go. Okay, so that's it for the chili. I really hope you're going to try this one. It honestly is one of the best chilies I've ever made, and it is Brian Lagerstrom's recipe, at least based on that. So I hope you will try it and enjoy it, and thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. Please like the video, subscribe if you're not already, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.